Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, Physics Warrior, Daniel, Warren and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Tweet. Good to be here.
Hi, is that...
Hello, what?
Who's that? Wheelbarrow something or other? I can't read this. Seaside, how you doing?
Taking your tablets.
This is a mental patient that's projecting their problems onto us.
It's Chris
Get rid of that person.
You should let him in, Nathan. He makes him... He's interested, let him in.
Why? His opening
That
line
board?
was his projection of his
it's just that
mental
he's
illness
more
onto
interesting
me.
than the rumpus.
Sure, but if the first thing somebody does is project their mental illness onto me, I really don't want them here, you know what I mean? Go and deal with your mental illness if that's your opener. Literally. But, you know... This is somebody that wanted to shut the show down about 12 months ago.
Okay.
You realise that, right, Anthony? This is somebody that literally wanted to go out of their way to shut the show down, and now you're appealing to me to let him on
He's
so he can talk
hand
about
out.
his
He's
mental
trying to
illness.
give you an olive branch in his weird little way. He's trying to say, I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
You should,
Why?
you
By
should be the
projecting
best
his
man
mental
in
illness
it.
onto
No,
me?
it's called trolling. Slightly
trolling, yeah.
less aggressive trolling.
Right.
He does Pedro pretty well. It's kind of funny if we're talking about Chris.
You'd think, considering you wanted the show to go away, that you'd figure out by now to just go away yourself. You know what I mean? But he's not smart enough to figure that out yet. It's like, if you don't want the show to be here, the next best thing is just don't watch. You know, stick your head in the sand. Do Miles Davis's trick. Pretend it's not happening. Pretend we're not raping your religion. You know, then everything will be cool, right? Go and find a reassuring lie somewhere. Go and watch Simon Dan. You know, that's very reassuring that you're on a globe.
He's just another parrot.
Olive branch in one hand and dagger in the other.
So can we do some housekeeping? Is there any signs of curvature out there?
Absolutely none.
No, Nathan.
No.
So check out the last show. It will also rebroadcast with the pre-show where Anthony... I keep calling you Rantony. I've got to stop doing that.
Ranty Oakley.
Rantony Oakley, yeah. So Ranty and I were chatting it before the show started, just getting, you know, Ranty was getting his ducks in a row just so he could present it in a nice, coherent way, which he did very well. That'll get repeated on the debate that went before. I know the show is a little bit earlier on a Monday, but together with that pre-show, so when this live show ends, that will go out on my second channel. I will put a link to it once I've done all the sharing of this show and all the other things that I do at the beginning. But I'll continue with housekeeping. Is there any signs of axial rotation? Of the Earth-based variety, Ranty?
No.
Nada.
No.
Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a
Don't be
container?
ridiculous, you moron. Of course you can't have a gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane. Or a container.
There's a lot of people that believe there's this thing called outer space, Anthony, and it's this vacuum, right, next to the gas pressure we're all breathing.
I don't think there's many people that actually believe that there's a vacuum out there with Earth existing in the vacuum with a gas pressure of 14.7 psi. Surely there's not that many people that are that stupid to believe that, Nathan.
Probably about 99% of the Western world.
Well, how did the atmosphere, if you believe that Mars once had an atmosphere, how did gravity not save the atmosphere there?
Let's not get into the nonsense of why we
I know.
don't have any evidence of gas pressure existing without a container. Let's not worry about what they say the light in the sky is that's called Mars either. You know, that light in the sky, to assert that many millennia ago had a gas pressure also next to the vacuum of space without a container. Now, that's taking it a bit far for my liking, Ranty. I don't know. You know, you can carry on if you want.
No, it's fine.
So no evidence of gas pressure being maintained without a container. What about scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope. Just an
No.
aberration.
I haven't met her yet.
It's funny when you mention gravity. I remind myself of Slice Barkane's most recent video, and basically what he's doing is he's demonstrating to Ranty that we live in a pressurized environment that's a gradient, and his argument is, notwithstanding the fact that he's completely ignoring the first part of the challenge, which is explain how we have the gas pressure without the container. He completely ignores that, and he argues that we have a gradient. And what he does is he gets a bottle of pop and he puts some air in it, and then attaches a balloon to the top of it. Drives up a mountain, and then when he gets to the top of the mountain, as he's gradually getting up, the pressure that's inside the bottle starts to expand, or because of the lack of pressure, it fills up the balloon. Which all makes perfectly good sense. But when I ask him, well, how does he have the pressure without the balloon? He basically starts to reassert his position with regards to the pressure gradient. And basically he claims that we can't have a pressure gradient inside a container. And the guy's a moron. Yes, Sly, we can have a pressure gradient inside a container. You're wrong. And
Wait a minute. So he's turning it around?
Yeah, he's turning it around.
Right. So he's asking us to prove how we can have rather than addressing the very real question, which is how do you have a vacuum of space next to a pressurized system without a membrane?
Hold on.
He's arguing that we can't have a pressure gradient inside a container, right?
So if I was to say...
And I'm like, you can demonstrate that very easily.
So if you were to take two gases of different densities and put them in a container, they would separate out into their constituent levels, right?
Oh, gases behave like fluids and are treated as fluids.
Right,
so,
but
yes,
what I'm saying is, so analogous to your jar with all the different liquids in, if I had a container and I put two gases in of different densities, then the relative density of one would be in a different level to the relative density of the other, and they would separate into, what's that word? A gradient. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what it'll do.
But in order to achieve that, I would need a container so that I could isolate those two gases just to demonstrate that, correct?
Correct.
So equally, so just let's just think of a different way. So presumably I could also have a container that was, say, hotter or a particular condition at the bottom of the container to the top, and therefore force a gradient that way also. Again, the necessary antecedent in both cases would be a container to achieve that, though, correct?
Yeah, and rather than argue about the minutiae of what would happen inside the container, we're asking how do you have the pressure, whatever the argument is inside, we're saying it requires the container to have the argument in the first place. So let's not have the argument about what's inside the container. Let's argue about the container itself. And obviously he doesn't want to have that conversation. He just calls me a moron and says, it's gravity. Like, yeah, demonstrate it, moron.
I mean,
can't demonstrate
the container bit, to dumb that down for people who may not understand what the point is. Well, pressure requires something to press upon. And the assertion by people who believe in outer space is that what the gas pressure we all know and love here on Earth is pressing on is a lower pressure system, in fact, a vacuum. So it doesn't have anything to press on. In fact, something that it would actually disperse into based on the second law of thermodynamics. So to assert that a pressure gradient can press upon a vacuum is a complete nonsense. Unless you can demonstrate it. Hence the question, how do you have gas pressure without a container? Which
was that Rumpus just having a eureka moment?
No, that's Eleanor coming in asking for
no, it's difficult to tell the difference between the two.
He's just watched the first show.
Insult Eleanor.
Sorry, Eleanor.
Her mother did tell me a couple of weeks ago while we were engaged in a disagreement about something. She said, "Don't rumpus me." That's what she said to me. It's my wife. Don't rumpus me.
I love how these phrases that originate from here are passing throughout the community itself, because I had them talking about different things on Globebusters, and I thought that's come from our show.
Mute that watch page, Warren. Tut tut.
Sorry.
Yeah,
some of the
so
phrases that they were
doesn't-
talking about on Globebusters, I thought that's come
It's a
from here.
strawman argument, basically, isn't it? So to introduce the gas pressure gradient, well, so what? A necessary antecedent for a gas pressure gradient is also a container, so who cares? It doesn't address the question, how do you have gas pressure without a container? So yes, Sly. Yes, thank you for confirming we do have gas pressure. The bit we're concerned about is the vacuum of space, you assert. Hello? So show us gas pressure without a container, and then we'll believe anything you say about this outer space that is actually a much lower pressure system that it's pressing on. Hey, Gibby, how you doing?
Block me.
So,
Sorry,
and the other
Charles.
thing is as well, he
Don't block me.
proven gravity with siphons, and I'm
Don't
like,
block
I'm
me.
not sure what he means when he says siphons, but I realise that he thinks that he's proved them with siphons. So I'm not
Don't block
familiar with
me.
the video that he's referring to.
Do not block me.
guarantee-
You're white.
Manipulate independently the gravity, right? You know that requirement in science where you manipulate your independent variable to cause an effect. The dependent variable, I can guarantee you didn't do that. So whatever the siphon's point is, Sly, it's not science.
Okay, so no scientific evidence of gravity, no gas pressures without a container. What about the distance to the sun? Is that still a massive assumption?
No, there is no distance to the sun.
The distance to the sun is based on two assumptions, isn't it? It's based on the assumption by Cassini that Venus was the same size as the Earth. And that assumption was based on Aristophanes saying that if the Earth was a sphere, this is what the size would be based on these shadows, right? Well, the distance, because the distance to the sun is two assumptions based on each other, it's just like the gas pressure, right? The assumption is that, well, gravity is what keeps them on the Earth, and gravity is, because that's an assumption that it's there, or they claim it's a true thing that it's there. That assumption itself, all of their arguments are all based on what we're going to call fairy tales, assumptions, beliefs, religion, but they can't prove any of them, and it's nonsense. I mean, we're on show 600 and what is it, 29? Still no evidence of globe. Just stories. It's embarrassing.
There is a distance to the sun, there isn't there? You just don't know it.
No.
No,
How do you know that
maybe
the
not.
sun's a tangible object?
Exactly. How do you know it's a physical thing that you could travel to?
Whether it's tangible or not, it still has a distance, doesn't it? Like a shadow has a distance.
No,
It's
that's
not-
the
How
problem.
far's the rainbow?
No, hold on, I just got to address that. No. So the problem is, right, but as you try and get closer to it, its position changes, right? You can't chase the sun.
Yeah, but whether it changes or not, before it changes, it's got a distance, and then after it changes, it's got a different distance, isn't it?
Yeah, but we can't rule out that the sun's not a dynamic entity, moving like a rainbow.
Yeah, but
Well, it
a
is.
rainbow has a distance as well, doesn't it?
No, you can't. If you move, the rainbow moves, right? You're never going to get to the pot of gold. Same thing applies to the sun, unfortunately.
I have tried that, by the way. It
Me
doesn't
too.
work.
So distance to the sun.
But the rainbow isn't a foot away, is it? So you know it's further than a foot. So it has a distance, but we just don't know the distance.
It doesn't.
It
You
doesn't
can't
have
tell
it's an
how
optical
far a rainbow
effect.
is.
It's just
You
an
need to
optical
triangulate
effect.
it, but you can't
It's-
triangulate it because the other person has a different perception to what you do, because
Right,
he's
it's-
seeing the rainbow from a different perspective.
It's an optical effect. So you can't, exactly, you can't triangulate it. As soon as you move, it will move also. So it doesn't have
It's
a
like-
distance.
It's like if we're stood on the beach and we're both looking out to the horizon at the setting sun, like what's on screen right now, and we both see that that line that is the reflection of the sun leads to our feet. But I don't see your line that leads to your feet, and you can't see my line that leads to my feet, but we both see our own individual one. It's the same for the sun.
Cool.
I'll
Any-
let it go, but I just don't like it when people say, "Oh, there is no distance to the sun."
Well, yeah, that's how it stands. It's an intangible object. We had this with the guy who was on yesterday, the Kiwi, and yeah, the same exact thing applies. If you want to assert that it's tangible, when by definition it is intangible, then you can't make the logical step to say you can conclude there is a distance in the first place. Zinder's got the same issue, and for that reason I can empathise. With Zinder, I just jumped down his neck. So I get it. You know, you're so used to the concept of it being a physical thing that, well, how can it not be? Well, you can't establish that. It's intangible. So then you have to quantify that, well, potentially it could be tangible. Well, that doesn't change the fact that it's intangible. No, but it could be. It's like, yeah, that's like that with a lot of intangible things, unfortunately. Yeah, potentially you could establish what it is, but until then it's intangible.
And it makes you wonder whether the Icarus story, the guy that was plastered with wax and feathers, makes you wonder whether or not the reason for the Icarus story was exactly what we're talking about. Because you know that he was supposed to fly up to the sun, right? And he was supposed, don't get too close because it'll melt your wings and all that. Well, obviously, the fact that story exists, whether or not it's true or not, is another point. But the fact that it exists as a parable or a story means that they've obviously been wondering about the sun for many, 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 many years. Because there wouldn't be a history to it? You know what I mean? It would be something that like they would just tell us is black and white. It was 93 million miles away, and hey, what do you know? That's what they tell us. But the fact that the Icarus story exists means that people have been wondering what the sun was for years.
So, any evidence for self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Oh, do you know what? I fell out with conspiracy cats last night over this.
You've only just fallen out with him now?
No, I've fallen out with him numerous times. The guy's a moron, right? He can't understand that the P wave and the S wave claim, which is basically the earthquake's point. If you use, this is what I said to him: seismology predicted 4 things with the Kohler superdeep borehole, and the 4 things that they predicted, they were wrong on all 4 points. So in that context, how credible is the perception that P waves and S waves are reliable and accurate with regards to the interpretation of what you tell us is based on a sphere? And when he draws out his diagram and he shows the echoes bouncing here, there, and basically his position is the P wave, the primary wave going down, and the reflection that comes back up again, the secondary wave, his position is that can only be the case on a sphere. And when he draws it out and he shows how it bounces around and all that, and I'm like, well, it works equally if the Earth's flat. And he's like, how does it? He said, what does it bounce back off? And then we argued about whether or not there is a reflection wave that bounces off anything. Because if you think about it, when you fire that sonar wave down, it's supposed to hit the other side of the Earth, but then reflect off the underside of the crust. And it's like, well, why would it know to reflect off the inside of that crust? What makes that crust the inside of the crust? What makes that the point where it reflects back and not any of the other points that are along the way, if it is indeed a sphere? And he can't get his head around the fact that if it was just a slice on a cake and it's an even medium all the way through, that would be symmetrical. Can't get his head around it.
I need to tell you off, mate.
Sorry, hey, Chocolate.
You keep giving them the benefit of the doubt here. You keep saying that he can't get his head around it. Yes, he can get his head around it. He refuses point blank because that would go against his religion. And his whole channel is being based upon that religion. So he will never, ever concede. That's why when you think that he just doesn't get it, he gets it all right. He just deliberately pretends that he doesn't get it. So stop falling for the same tricks.
Hey, Chocolate.
That's you told.
Hey, Chocolate. Good to have you.
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah, stop giving him the benefit of the doubt, Anthony. You know what kind of channel he is.
Well, I concluded by telling him to fuck off because the guy he can't even accept that there is an equally, with regards to the Polaris point that he thinks basically proves sphere. And when I tried to explain to him that it gradually slows down as we get to the horizon, he only sees it as the last degree or two, but it's gradually slowing down all the way from 90 degrees. But the amount that it's dropping is so small.
Hey, Goat. How you doing?
3, 2, 1.
Sorry,
Can't trust. Yeah, can't trust that he's not going to snipe everybody. You got to speak up if you're going to join, otherwise we don't know that you're going to like not kill a hangout.
Yeah, I just wouldn't give him any satisfaction anymore, Anthony. You just, you know, originally when he first came on the scene, and you said this guy is a teacher and he's dead interested in all this, and he's a science, this, that, and the other, and he wants to learn. He wants to learn our side of the argument. That was all well and good. That's how he came across originally. Since then, he's completely tuck-tailed and run. Since he's been sucking off Simon Dan, and the two of them have been getting into bed together. Essentially, he doesn't care about our argument.
Well, he claims that he can't understand it. He can't see how it can possibly work. But I'm presenting it to him, and he's literally ignoring it. And I'm like, you can't ignore this. This is not something that you can handwave dismiss. It proves that it's inconsistent with your claim. So if your claim is wrong in the first instance, I'm sorry, but
hey, Cineworld, how you doing? Ugh.
More trolls. I think it's that Chris MCM.
Probably.
Yeah.
Who cares? Might be not. Who cares?
It is improbable.
Right. Well, just so you guys know, I'm leaving in 10 minutes, so I'm setting off in about 10 minutes.
You taking your tripod?
Cool.
Setting off in the sunset.
That horizon's level, Ranty.
It's a pretty flat horizon.
Yeah, you did better on that video. Or
Yeah,
that picture, rather.
But just for me, take your tripod, do a 360 from the top of the hill. I've never seen it. I've never seen anybody do it.
You never seen anyone do a 360?
No, I mean, when I say never seen anybody, none of us have done it. Yeah, there's probably all sorts of footage out there that does that.
It's off. Do I have to bring up evidence now that proves that that's wrong?
You telling me you've been to the top of a hill and done a 360?
Pardon?
Show me, go on, show me your 360.
Okay, bear with me 2 seconds, I'm getting it.
I don't care. I want the one that Ranty does with the tripod. With this P1000.
With a tripod. For the benefit of the audience, I'm going to see whether I can spot Morghold Lighthouse on the Isle of Man. That's what I'm going for. That's the challenge I've set myself.
You definitely need a tripod for that.
Likely to fail. It's likely to fail, but at the end of the day, I might as well have a go. Might as well.
Nathan, present my screen.
You're on.
On my video entitled "If Our Earth Really Is a Ball," what's the first thing that I do here, Nath? Got my little camera, put on my post. Oh, look, 360.
It's bloody house in the way.
It's still a 360 because I knew they'd argue over it.
For a second there, I was about to eat humble pie and tell you I was wrong and that I hadn't been paying attention. It's from the top of the hill, so he's got a panorama of the horizon at 360 degrees. That's what I'm after, but on a tripod that's been leveled with a bit of care.
Yeah. You want it leveled?
Did I need to add that caveat?
To R?
Are you kidding me? Yes, please.
Whilst I've got this on screen, I might as well just punt it anyway. Boys and girls, ballers, idiots. Basically, the challenge was, why can I... Basically, when we took the Isle of Man composite image, right, we see the little lighthouse on the horizon from about 100 and odd feet up. None of it should be seen. They brought back the roof tiles with a little bit of bendy light, right, and that was enough for them to claim that they could bring back the whole of the lighthouse. But I basically went back to a much lower point, and if the observer height is so critical on a ball, which of course it is, then it should not be the case that I'm able to get the same image when I'm at a significantly lower height. Not a little bit lower. It's like I was at 100 feet before, and I'm now down to about 30 feet, 35 feet. That's about 70 feet's worth of difference. It's impossible on a ball to get the same footage from a totally different height because the curve gradient's got to be significant between you and it. So this is not consistent with a sphere. This is only consistent with a flat plane and a little bit of atmospherics. So thanks for the 360, Riles, and I'm done.
Groovy.
Right, I'm going to get gone. I'll leave you guys to it.
Okay.
Laters.
See you all later.
Yeah, thank you very much for presenting that, Ranty. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, take a tripod.
See you in a bit.
Fucking hell, that sounded like Arwin. Boo.
Yeah, Ranty.
No.
Yeah. So basically, Nathan, but now we can get back to the point, one of the points, the perspective point that Bob was talking about on Globebusters. Obviously, we're all on our own little journey, and we don't all get it at the same time. Some people get it when they're told. Some people don't get it when they're told, and it takes time for them to understand why. And we all follow this in different ways. But I realise that Jaren and Bob both realised what maybe they did before, or maybe it's just a penny's dropped for them completely. They are raping the perspective. They're raping perspective and replacing it with curve, and we know what they're doing. These guys are literally liars, stupid and lying, and that's why they don't want to come on the show. It's not because Nathan's a horrible bugger. It's not because of bloody this and bloody that. It's because they know that they've been caught out, and I don't think they're ever going to come back on this show. And it's because they know that they can't win. They're all liars.
I know, like says, religion being taken to pieces, but that's what we do. Hee hee hee. But yeah, that's it. The Earth is obviously unobservably flat, and the people who claim it's not and are involved in this conversation are either dishonest or delusional.
And in the Rumpus's case, both. Utter moron is the phrase that he uses, and that's exactly what he is. So basically, the way the ballers are right now, they've all got the pants down, and we're slapping their ass, and we're enjoying it because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think if people aren't getting it and they are ending up in conversations that involve the curve calculator, so they're already on that slippery slope of begging the question, you do need to ask a couple of questions, which is when they start presenting you with the alternative, well, on a flat Earth we should see this, inevitably it will have the side of the observer's head. And that's where you ask them, well, where is that person in the photograph that we're analysing? And when they say, well, no, this is a side representation, it's like, well, where's your picture of that view? Why haven't you taken a picture of that? Well, no, I've created it in a CAD program. Well, why? Well, because I need to remove perspective is the answer. Because I need to call that perspective curvature. That's the answer. That's the reality of the situation these globeheads who are paying attention are faced with. And they know it.
Yeah. And that's why they can't come in. They can't come in because every time they come in, they're going to get flat smacked. We know what you're doing. We know how you're doing it. And we know the lie. And that's why we're all... And the best thing is, because there's no real, personal gain for any one person to be right or wrong on our side, it means that we all unite and try and work out what is going on. And yeah, if we get things wrong along the way, that's okay. We're learning. However, you lot, none of you can get it wrong, but you're all in the wrong. You're all sat there, and literally you are all holding each other's willy. And I use that phrase because it's the best pictorial way I can describe it. You all hold each other, and I think that you're all... The solidarity between you as brothers is impressive because none of you ever concede any points. You always defend each other, apart from the odd occasion where there is the odd disagreement over a particular thing. It's always to do with the facts rather than the interpretation. But we all know what you're doing. There is no curve, boys and girls. None. Curve, axial rotation, gravity. They can't prove it. They can't even explain it away. The sleight of hand, deception, lying. Yeah, that's all they accuse us of.
So, Jaren has asked me to go on to, I don't know if it's Raw or what show he'll end up chatting to me on, but I'm hoping you'll join me, actually, Ranty. Done it with you now. Hoping you'll join me, Anthony, if you are available to do so. But what he's asked me to do is go through some of the clips from the old debates and pick out maybe half a dozen or a dozen clips where people have actually used logical fallacies or beg the question or whatever. Just a few examples of that. So between now and whenever I get around to doing it, I'm hoping that maybe either if the audience is watching and they know of a good example, and most importantly the debate number. So if you just say, oh, that time when, that's not going to be much use. But
that's so difficult to try and find.
Exactly. But if somebody knows, oh, on debate 523 you had a guy who basically used the affirming the consequent. He's talking about the stars. So, or if you can remember when Tim's been on, you'll know that he's used the affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy, because that's what Tim does. So it's just cast your mind back. If you do have a specific example that you can give me the debate number of, because it's it's a bit of homework for when he said it to me on Skype. I was like, oh my god, this could be a real challenge. I don't know where anything is. 600 debates.
We might not be able to locate all of these moments, but they stick in the head because they are events that actually happened, and that we all stick with different things that make us remind. I mean, I remember Hank, for example, and we cite this a lot, but it's true. Hank asked Paper Explanator, how do they know the distance to the stars? And basically, Paper's first words out of his mouth were, well, you've got to assume that the sun's 93 million miles away, and then he started his spiel. Well, no, you don't. You don't have to assume that the sun's anything. You can just literally, you can make no assumptions and try and calculate what the stars are doing. And the only thing that you can interpret is that the stars appear to be moving. So why would you have to try and assume anything other than the obvious nature of what's going on? Unless there's evidence that proves that the obvious is wrong. And I don't see any evidence that proves that the obvious nature of what we see is actually wrong. Why does there need to be any other state other than what we see? So in other words, what I'm questioning is, why would Einstein need to argue for relativity unless he's got evidence that proves that relativity in the context of moving bodies is true? Because otherwise, the way we see the stars moving should be the way we perceive them. The stars appear to be moving. So let's not convert back around and say, well, let's assume that the sun's 93 million miles away. No, let's not. Let's point out that you're making the assumption and you're begging the question. And back then, we didn't know what all the logical fallacies of debate were. And we're still learning them now. But you can pick them off one by one. But it's obvious that Jaren's got the affirming the consequent one. So if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. He's sussed that one out now. And I mean, obviously, that's come from us pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. I mean, he might have already known it. He might have forgotten it. But it certainly wasn't common phraseology in the area of the internet that we're on right now, known as flat Earth. It certainly wasn't commonly used. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. It's only come about since John, that. So credit to John.
John does deserve a lot of credit, and I've said it to him on messages after I've used some of the examples he's given me, or how he's tightened them right up, and I've used it exactly as he's gone through it with me. And then I've got back in touch and said, I'm really sorry I didn't credit you with that. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, There was a time when he was explaining it, going, look, what I've essentially given you is a chainsaw, and you don't really know how to use that chainsaw. So once you've figured it out, then you'll be dangerous.
Yeah. I think also the good thing about John is that the ballers can only discredit John on the basis that he's a Christian fundy, as they call him. And to be honest, even if he is a Christian fundy, none of his arguments are based around any of the religions. So I don't even see how that's even a point of discrediting him at all. So what? He's got a religious view about Christianity or whatever. I don't care how you word that phraseology, and I know it's contentious, but my point is that none of his arguments are based in religion. They're all based on the science that you guys tell us is the world that we live in. All of his citations are all credited. And yeah, you can argue that some of them might not be as strong as others. That's okay. But some people literally accuse him of adding words or removing words to change the context of stuff. And there's no evidence that he's done that. Saying it and proving it are not the same thing. In the same way that saying that the stars rotate around the Earth proves that we live in a ball. Well, saying it and proving it are two different things. So you can't say that John's changed words or removed words or whatever.
Hey, Larry. How you doing?
And then claim that we live in a ball because of the stars.
Hello.
Hello.
So, Lowry, you believe that we live in a sphere, don't we?
Hang on 1 minute.
Having a few sound
Yeah,
issues.
sure.
You believe we live in a sphere, yeah?
Yep.
Any particular reason?
Facts fit it better.
Because what?
Facts fit it better.
What did he? I didn't catch that. What did he say?
I didn't
Said
understand
the
what he said.
facts fit it better, I think. So which facts would it be?
Yeah, which facts? Keep your mic still.
I'm actually changing my mic because this mic is worse than the other one.
Give him a few minutes, Anthony.
We
Just
can't
to
hear
sort
you.
himself out.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix that.
So yeah, it's getting people to understand where the logical fallacies lie with a lot of these arguments, and it took me the longest of time to understand that you've got to assume that you're travelling around a sphere when you use the star argument, and that is the definition of the affirming the consequent logical fallacy, formalised logical fallacy. So if PQ, Q therefore P, is what they do. So assuming that we are travelling to the southern hemisphere, I will observe star rotation. But in saying that, you're already travelling over there, but it's actually down there. So it's got you to beg the question in the logical fallacy itself. Not only that, it is also a begging the question fallacy as well, because the outcome that you're trying to prove is the thing that you assert as P. If the Earth is a sphere, well then that is the begging the question fallacy. So it's a begging the question, affirming the consequent, formal logical fallacy, to use the stars as a proof of the globe. It relies on people being so brainwashed that they automatically, without even questioning it, assume that they are travelling underneath their own arse when they travel to the southern quote-unquote hemisphere. Well, when you use that terminology, hemisphere, you're automatically telling the person who's using that example that they're travelling to the bottom of a sphere, when they're not. They're just travelling out there. Anyway.
Are you finished with your microphone, Larry?
Yeah, I hope this is better.
Yes, it is. Good to have you.
So, what evidence do you accept that makes you think we live on a sphere?
Well, for example, I got to know the flat Earth movement like 3 years ago, so I have been in the discussion long time. What really discredited the whole movement from the start for me was the amount of strawman arguments within the whole movement.
Couldn't agree
Like
more.
this red herring, you're
I
not
couldn't agree
actually
more.
presenting your facts, but
Yeah, I couldn't agree
strawmanning?
more. So let's stack on. What evidence do you accept that we live on a sphere?
Well,
So, Laurie, I would just like to ask, when you measure the distance from the sun, you have to assume you're on a ball to get the 93 million miles away. So how did you figure out you were on a ball to begin with?
Hang on. Let's retract that comment, that question. We'll come back to it. Let's just answer. Let him answer in his own words. What evidence he accepts that we live on a sphere?
These facts, so many of them. So what
God,
are they?
none of you can take the pressure. Right, while the cogs turn, just let there be silence. He will answer eventually.
I don't think I will though, because I already tried. Like, look, here is what I actually tried to do. Yeah, you can laugh if you want to be an asshole.
Come on, what
Giving
evidence
up before you even started.
Come on, what evidence?
I started with an actual honest discussion mode. Like I started to talk about how I got to the movement.
What evidence you got? Come on.
Can you stop and let me actually bloody answer?
Not if it's a red herring. No.
Well, then fuck off.
No swearing. Come on, chill out. It's okay. You just don't live on a globe.
Like I started to talk about how I see strawman how I saw strawman arguments, and you then just want to push your own agenda and ask me questions that don't go in that direction. That gives me a clue that you're not actually wanting a discussion here anyway. So you're not looking at it honestly, because you want to ask a question, but you are not willing to listen at anything else.
Let me get this straight. You think I'm being dishonest by asking you what evidence you accept that we live on a ball?
Yes, because I was going in a different direction.
I don't care what direction you want to go in. What evidence?
Well,
have you got that we live on a ball?
and that's my point. You proved my bloody point. You don't care what direction I want to go in. You just want to push people.
Simple question. What evidence do you accept that we live on a ball?
What evidence do you have that we don't?
There's no evidence to prove we live on a ball.
Well, prove it then.
Well,
yeah, no problem.
There is no evidence.
Hold on. We just had Ranty on for the whole show, last show. Were you not watching the last show? Tune in. You know what I mean?
I'm gobsmacked that you don't understand that it's your assertion that we live on a sphere, right? And I'm
God
literally
damn it, mate. Don't play this bloody game.
I feel as though we're being trolled here, actually.
Whatever. Yeah, so if you want to see proof we don't live on a sphere, the replay of Ranty and myself chatting about it pre-show and the debate itself, which is open to the public, anybody could have come in at any stage and refuted anything he had to say, proves we live on a flat plane. Beyond doubt. There is no way that you can assert that that works on a sphere unless you want to exclude perspective. So if you want proof that we live on a flat plane, no worries. They play out constantly, like this picture here of the Isle of Man at about 68 miles, or the one that Ranty put on the last show at about 78 miles. I mean, there's all sorts of proof all over the place that you can just see stuff that's far away.
That photo shows curvature, though. Like, why are those windmills?
So there's no curve in that picture. Hold on. What's curving exactly?
Like, you can see the bloody windmills hidden behind the curvature.
Oh, sorry. So that's a logical extraction then. So we're not seeing curvature as you asserted. You're taking it one step further and saying that what we are seeing is, if I present this inside view and assert that what is inside view is the curvature as opposed to perspective, then the obstruction at the horizon is caused by Earth being a globe. That's what you're saying, correct?
Okay, so you don't want people to actually use brains or logic. You just want them to believe what you say. Because logical inference is something you cannot handle.
No, you asserted that this was Earth curve, and I pointed out that nothing's curving. Then you corrected yourself.
Yes, that's your assertion. Can you prove that? Can you prove nothing?
You asserted that it was Earth curve, and I pointed out that there's no curve there. Then you asserted one.
Can you prove that though? You can assert it, but can you
I'll make it. I'll just say it again. Nothing is curving there. There is no curve there. What you call Earth curve, you then qualified the obstruction at the horizon. There is no obstruction at the horizon. There is a limited angle of view.
There is obstruction of the horizon. You just want to call it a limited angle.
What obstruction?
Like you're playing a word game.
What are you talking about? What obstruction? Where?
The obstruction that we see. Like you can see it in the picture yourself, so don't say it isn't there.
What obstruction? I'm asking you. You tell me what's
the obstruction that you can see. You can see it by yourself.
What obstruction? What are you talking? You just keep asserting there's this obstruction. What obstruction?
You know bloody well what I'm talking about. The windmills are behind the curvature. Like they are not visible completely.
No, I didn't ask you to just assert your religious belief.
Okay, I'll ask you a question. Are the windmills visible completely? Yes or no?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Are the windmills visible completely? Yes or no?
Well, they're too small to see. They're in a very limited angle of view.
No, bloody hell. They are not too small to see. Like you can see them as far as they are not hidden from the bottom.
So did you say they're not too small to see?
That's a different thing.
So did you say they're not too small to see? What? How far are they?
This is exactly
the
problem.
I'm asking you a question. You've just made... Can you stop talking? You've made an assertion.
No, I actually cannot.
Well, you're going to give up already? You said they're not too small to see, you asserted. Please tell me how far away they are for you to make that assertion.
Well, can you back up? Like you're assuming the silly way flat earthers say perspective works. Can anyone prove that actually is how it works?
So we're moving away from this picture. For some reason, you've ignored my question entirely. So for you to assert that they are not too small to see, you would need to know their distance. So how far are these turbines?
Like you're relying on a silly assumption that perspective works in a very different way, and I'm not sure why.
Sorry, that's the second time you've ignored my question.
That's just silly.
You've just ignored my question completely.
Of course, I ignored your question.
Why?
Silly question.
Why? So you're just going to. So let me get this straight. Without knowing the distance to these turbines, you are going to assert that it's Earth curve. So
like
it's
obviously
just,
they are not too small to see.
Shut up!
We see
Shut
them.
up! I hadn't finished. So without knowing
care.
I haven't finished. Shut your mouth. So without knowing any information about it, you will just assert your religious belief that whatever effect is in this picture. I haven't finished speaking.
They are not too small to see.
I haven't finished speaking. What's your problem? There's no need to be triggered. We're just destroying your religious belief.
You can
It's
see them.
okay. It will all be over soon if you could just listen. Or you can stick your head in the sand, stick your fingers in your ears, and go la
Yes,
la
that's-
la
that's
la la
exactly
while
what
I
you can
talk.
do if you don't
That's
want
what you
to
can
accept
do.
the truth.
But okay, that is what you're going to do. You're going to stick your fingers in your ears while I talk and go la
Yes,
la la
if,
la la,
if that's
right?
what you want to do.
Laurie, he doesn't understand angular perspective.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry,
He thinks
I'm asking him a
things
question,
disappear
and he's
from
just
bottom
ignored
up. He's
it
an
and said
idiot.
it's acceptable to just ignore my question. Then he's just going to talk all over me. So
You're an idiot.
All right, let's get rid of Alan.
Hello, Alan.
No,
Hi.
goodbye, Alan. Goodbye, Alan. So, I'll ask it you again.
Why did you kick him?
Because he just called me, he just ad hom me for no reason. So I'm asking a question. In order to assert that it's Earth curve causing this, then you would need to know the distance. And you don't. I am asserting that is because you have asserted your religious belief in Earth curve without knowing anything about this picture whatsoever.
Okay, that's fine. Let me
No,
answer
it's not. That's my point. You're a religious zealot. It doesn't
No,
matter
can
anything
you-
about this picture. You will just tell everybody it's Earth curve. Because in your world, any obstruction at the horizon is Earth curve. Therefore, this is Earth curve. No, it's okay. It won't take long. You'll accept it eventually. Not all obstruction is Earth curve.
Come on. Act like an adult.
What are you talking about?
Do you want a reasonable answer on?
You don't know anything about it.
it.
Why are you giving me answers? Your only answer is to assert it's Earth curve. You don't know anything about this image, yet you're telling me I need your answers.
I won't be consented on. If you want a reasonable discussion, I can have it, but I won't listen to your silly bullshit.
Well, sod off then. I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
Go
see
in
you
peace
later.
in our you trust. Good for you. Believe that every single obstruction at the horizon
No,
is caused by...
you are the
And
culprit
talk
here.
over me every time I start talking.
Talk like an adult.
This is the only tactic you globers have
Talk
got.
like an adult.
You're still talking over me. So your religious assertion is that it's Earth
Come
curve
on.
without knowing anything
Okay.
about the image. And while I
Stop it.
point this out,
Stop it.
all you can do is talk all over me. So you don't
Stop
know
being
anything
a
to tell me anything
Nathan.
about this
Talk
picture.
like an adult.
Why would I need your assertions about this image when you literally know nothing
no,
and have
no,
already
This is
asserted,
not how we-
whilst talking all over me, that it's Earth curve causing this? That's not based on knowledge. It's not based on any information you've got. It's based on your religious belief in this shit. That's because you are a religious zealot whose only tactic is to talk over me continually. That's your only tactic.
Okay, finished with the rant? We both know there's no reasonable discussion here anymore, so what's the next step?
You're
Larry,
not
you're
being
getting
reasonable, Laurie.
demolished, Larry. You're just getting demolished.
So this is Earth curve
Okay.
then. You know nothing about the picture, but this is definitely Earth curve, your religious belief in the worldview that you have. It's that, right?
That's fine if you want to have that narrative, but you
I'm
just don't
asking.
want to hear anything else.
What else have you got to offer? Tell me how far the turbines are.
Okay, so are you now ready to listen to a reasonable answer?
Yeah,
I
tell me
tried
how
to
far the
give
turbines
you
are.
10
Yeah,
minutes
tell me how
ago,
far they
but
are. How far are
You
they?
have religious rant there.
I'm asking a question, direct question. I'll ask it again, see if you can listen rather than talking over me. How far are the turbines?
You said to me that, okay, I know why this is.
No, people don't like having their ass handed to them by me.
No, you don't like your ass handed back to you by other people. That's why you shout over them.
I'm not
That's
shouting
what's
over
happening
anybody.
here.
Every time I talk, you talk as well. Because I point out that without knowing anything about this image, let's see how long before... Oh, as I was about to say to the audience, let's see how long before he interrupts me. You interrupted me. Yeah?
Yes.
Maybe
you are right.
I'll start saying the things back to you. Maybe you can grow up. Maybe you can have an adult
Maybe you can
conversation.
grow up, maybe.
Maybe... I literally repeated your words as you were saying them. So maybe you should grow up.
No, I repeated
Maybe
your
you should
words
have an
after
adult
you had said
conversation.
them. Do you not like silly mate?
Maybe you can let people talk and have an adult conversation, or maybe you will continue to behave like a child. every single time I point out that without knowing anything about
you-
this
you
image,
behave like
there
a
he goes
child in
again.
everything.
Can't help
Hang
it.
on.
He knows what. Let's
And
just shut him up. Every time I point out to this religious zealot that without any knowledge or information whatsoever about this image, he has made his religious assertion that any cause of any obstruction he asserts is there is Earth curve. And when I ask him, well, how far are the turbines for you to make such an assertion? He doesn't know.
Yeah, I think he was born smarter than everybody or
assuming
something.
things that are not true. But you don't want to talk about that. You're
Laurie, can I ask you a question?
Or religious
Laurie,
perspective,
Laurie.
and you don't want to talk about that, so you try to
Laurie,
pin me down.
why do you spend all this time wasting time, man? When the guy asks you a question, you don't respond, right? And then when he starts speaking, that's when you want to talk over him. Why don't you just have a conversation, man? Let him answer his question, and then you say something. That's how people talk.
Yes, I know, but that's not how Nathan.
Is that okay with you? Like you keep speaking over him. Just
obviously
let him ask the question, and then answer the question, and then he goes. That's how people conversate.
Let's see if
Let's
we can
try
manage
that.
it. Let's see with a lecture from you whether or not I can manage to get this statement out without him interrupting me and him responding. So, without any knowledge or information whatsoever about the picture on screen, you have asserted your religious faith that any effects are caused by Earth curve. Why would you assert that without any information about it at all?
Well, I have actually looked at cases like this. I haven't looked at this particular case, but I have looked at other cases. Actually, this might be the one, because I looked at windmills near the Isle of Man. It may not have been this picture, but a very similar picture where windmills were hidden by the curvature. Someone said it was impossible. I fact-checked it. It worked out perfectly in the globe model. I fact-checked the fucking big pedestrians case also. That worked with the globe model. Every single case I have fact-checked with the bloody globe model. And there's always, when I fact-check this, there's always some silly, stupid mistake that flat earthers make. And it always happens to fit the globe model. So I'm actually happy to fact-check every single case because it adds to my tool belt that I can use to debunk the FLIR model.
Sorry.
For example, one guy in he tried to calculate for the missing curvature in Las Vegas Valley. He said the distance there was 130 miles, when the maximum distance you can have is 30 miles. So he added 100 extra miles. That's the silly mistakes flat earthers make.
Oh, I see.
That's an outright lie.
Anyway, that's lovely. That's not us.
I can
Anyway,
give you the
Arwin,
person
I was trying to have a conversation with him. So, that's a lovely story about someone that's not us.
Sure.
Right. So, totally irrelevant.
Okay, let's return to this picture then.
Jolly
Let's
good.
fact check this. Let's see how far they actually are. Okay, so where was this picture taken?
You tell me you asserted this was Earth curve.
And you...
Yeah, I'm going to assume that he's going to have to use the R value.
Can you not interrupt him, please? Sorry, I'll just repeat my statement. You tell me you asserted that this is Earth curve. I have asked you for the distances so that you can back up your assertion. So don't ask me for the distances after you've made your claim. Now you back your claim. So I can rip it to shreds. I haven't finished!
Okay,
I haven't finished talking. Do you need to grow up? Do you need to behave like a child when we're having a conversation? I didn't interrupt you with your diatribe about someone else. Now you listen to me about the point.
Okay,
you
have a rant.
Oh, you just can't help yourself. You're a child. You can't contain yourself, child. Maybe you need to grow up to have an adult conversation. Now, you listen to me. That's not your cue to talk. That's your cue to listen, child. You listen to me. You made a claim that this was curvature. When you quantify it with the exact distances and you're begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, I will hand you your own arse. That's on the proviso that you can actually give us some of the distances that you obviously know, having made the claim. So, you tell me how far these wind turbines are, Larry.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You want me to come in this stream knowing beforehand what cases we are going to discuss. And before I make any assertion, you want me to already have fact-checked all the bloody cases we are going to discuss, because fact-checking them in this live stream is not something you want to do, because that will fucking wreck your
No need
model.
to swear. I know it's a demolition of your religion and it makes you angry. I'm now talking. That means you stop, child. It's okay, child. I know you said your piece and you think you should talk indefinitely like children do, but we are involved in an adult conversation. That means you be quiet when other people speak. I'll point out my point now you've finished, that it's unreasonable to make a claim and then support your claim being that this is curvature. I'm asking you to support that claim you made. Let's see how you do.
And when I went to try to fact check that, you said we cannot do that because...
So let me get it straight. You made a claim with absolutely no facts whatsoever and asserted your religious belief anyway. Precisely the point. Oh, it's okay. I'm obviously not allowed to talk on my own show. So, like I pointed out, and this is the crescendo, that's why he's talking all over me, and I've got to shut him up so the audience gets the point. That's my point. You asserted a religious belief without any information, and then you asked me for the information to back your claim. That's why you're a zealot. Hello, religious zealot.
Hello. How are you doing?
Well, at least you know your name. And with that, I will say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. Hopefully they'll stick around for the after show, which will broadcast at 0400 GMT or 4 AM UK time. So hopefully the guys on the panel stick around. But also a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing it on social media. If you hated the show, then smash that dislike button, but then smash it again. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!